Now, along with you being a professional, I've had a little bit of this. Being a master wordsmith such as you are, do you have or do you find that people, as random writers, aspiring writers, or even family members, are constantly sending you drafts to look at, to stories to judge, to write, that sort of thing?
Family members, no, they're too smart to even bother me with that. Um, it's happened. I mean, it happens every now and then where I do a lot of conventions and personal appearances, that kind of thing, and so I'll have people come up and try to see if I'll read something. Not as much. People are getting. I think they're getting smarter about it now. There's because of the internet, there's a lot of information out there to tell people not to do that. Because we're not. It's not even that we want to be mean. It's just don't have the time.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, I got enough trouble doing my own stuff. And I will look at stuff for peers, people I know, and I already know that they can write, and they just want me to look at, help them with something. But that's generally. I mean, we try and get the word out not to do that, and so I'll do my part right now and tell aspiring writers, don't do that. The exception to that is if you have an established relationship. If you become my friend, we've known each other for years, and most importantly, if I offer, that's the thing that blows my mind away is that I know authors who have done that. I've seen them do it where they're talking to somebody and maybe for whatever reason the person has pitched something or they're talking and this author will say, I'd like to help you out. Send me that. I'll take a look at it and I'll give you my feedback. And then they never do. They never follow up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, are you crazy? If ever an author tells you that they're willing to look at something of yours, you send it to them the next day. You email them, you say, do you remember we met and you said I could send this to you? Here it is. Because otherwise you're just throwing away one of the great opportunities you can have. But yeah, unsolicited, I get it a little bit, but mostly not. Mostly people are getting smarter about that. Thank you. At least for me. Maybe they just don't want my advice.
No, that's doubtful. You have too many books out there. Of course they're going to talk to you about that sort of thing. But now, I've looked at some of your future schedule, and it only shows short term. You do a lot of shows every year, don't you? How many shows do you think you do a year between cons and book fairs and that sort of thing, and appearances?
Yeah, I do. Oh, I might do a dozen or to 20. I don't know. I've been backed off a bit this year, although even when I back off, I wasn't supposed to be doing any this month, and I'm going to be at the Loch Norman Festival, which is actually a Scottish pride kind of festival, where they walk around in kilts and do Scottish games.
Mm-hmm.
But
Caber
the guy
toss
who's
it all.
running, yeah, the guy who's running it happens to be somebody I know, and he got me and some other authors that he knew, and he's creating a little mini book area, and I'm like, I don't write anything remotely related to that. He's like, it's okay. I just want you there. Trust me, they do other things besides Scottish stuff, so they'll want to buy. Like, okay. So I kind of I'm going to be doing that next Saturday, I think. So stuff like that just pops up. This year I'm not doing as many because I'm going to be at Dragon Con, which I do I don't do every year, but I do every few years. And that's such a big, expensive experience that I can't afford to do it as much as I usually do. And I'm not that. I mean, I do a lot, but I know authors who, just do it every weekend. They're out there. And, I can't do that. It's exhausting.
Yeah, I just had a picture in my head of Marshall Drummond getting dragged back in time to ancient Scotland now and having to solve a mystery back there. But I don't know why I saw him caber tossing for some reason. I don't know. But anyway, you said you go to a lot of cons. Are you a reader of comic books at all, or an aficionado of them at all?
I was many years. I still have. Right back here, I have my actual comic book collection, which is probably got a good 1,000 comics there. From I don't know, I was 13 or 14 till about 17. I just, I loved getting in, and then when I was in college, I started to do it again. I'm old enough that so the first comic book I ever got was I think it's Spider-Man 181. It's when he first had the black outfit.
Mm-hmm.
which turned out to be an alien, but Venom. But originally, it's that debut. That was the first comic book I ever bought, and back then, comics were like 80 cents, maybe a little cheaper. So me and my friends, we'd buy like 40 titles a month. Every weekend or every Friday after school, we'd go to the comic book store and whatever's new, and we'd collect so much, and it was so much fun. And then I just kind of got out of it. And then somewhere in the middle of college, I was like, I love doing that. I'm going to go do it again. And they were already up to like $1.25.
Yep.
I'm like,
about the 90s there,
like,
probably then. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm like, I can't afford to do 40 titles at $1.25. That's crazy. And so then I got out of it again, and I know they're ridiculously expensive now. So now what I do is I don't buy them at all, but every Christmas, my Christmas list is basically the big compilations, and somebody can spend 40 or 50 bucks on a book for me, and I enjoy them that way. So sometimes I'm behind. I got last Christmas, I got the first 3. They're beautifully done by Dark Horse of all the Hellboy, the original Hellboy books. So I can go through them that way.
Yep.
So I still love this stuff. I just can't afford it.
No, you can never buy everything you want to. It was like that a lot, because I used to collect a lot in the late 80s, early 90s when it was at its boom time. And even at $1 and $1.25, they got too expensive. Now they're about $4 for cover, so you just can't collect everything you want. But
right.
kind of the reason I brought it up is twofold. One, did you ever consider actually being a comic book writer at any time? And two, there's this really bad stigma out there about comic book stories and writers in general that it's not literature. That's just throwaway pulp. So if you can kind of get into that a little bit and let me know your stance on that.
Well, yes, I love writing. I've written comic book scripts before. I love doing it. And as I mentioned earlier, we have a graphic novel coming out for The Bluesman, and I wrote the whole thing, and the art is finally being done, and that's going to come out. John Jennings and I, there are a bunch of projects we want to do together. So kind of late to the game, but I might actually kind of through the back door be getting more and more comic work, which I would love. It's as a writer, it's not very lucrative. Even if you're writing, the big DC and big Marvel titles, most of the art or most of the money goes to artists of what is even given to people who aren't the publisher. I'm sure the artists are like, we don't get much money either. Yeah. And there are always exceptions. Neil Gaiman, I'm sure, was doing quite well, but once he established his name, he probably does quite well writing for Vertigo. So there, at least in the beginning, there's not a lot of money to be a writer of it, but it's a lot of fun, and it's enjoyable. As far as the stigma that goes with it, it's partially an American thing, and it's slowly changing, especially once I think manga became more popular in the U.S. when bookstores started carrying it. More and more, that's been changing. And I think the other thing that's been changing is more and more adults, people who are adults now, people like myself when they're, especially middle age and older, my generation, the X generation, we grew up with comic books, and we still read this stuff. We still love it. So, excuse me. So, I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of, even in movies, a lot of the superhero stories and things are getting more adult in terms of content, in terms of seriousness, because we're the ones who are buying it. Because if you got to pay, did you say they're $4.99 a title now? If you're 13, you can't afford that, But Dad can, so Dad's the one who does, and he's, things like The Walking Dead, I love it, but that probably would not have been made back in, '84, because it would have been too gruesome. I mean, back then, Judge Dredd was really considered kind of, off the mainstream. And I loved that stuff, but it just I think it's getting a little bit more respect, but it depends on how much more the indies voices get get seen instead of DC and Marvel.
Gotcha. All right. Well, I know you need to get back to your day pretty soon, so I just got a couple more questions for you, and we'll let you skedaddle on and get the rest of your stuff done. Do you have any upcoming projects you want to talk about? I know you mentioned at least two of them earlier, but if you want to go ahead and replug those again.
Sure. Well, I've always got stuff coming out. So we just had the seventh Marshall Drummond story come out called Bones in the Woods, and so that's doing really well, and I'm really excited about that. And then Southern Fury, which was the 11th Max Porter, came out last month. Next month we have Nathan K. number 8. It's called Prisoner, and there'll be more of Nathan K., Max Porter, and Parallel Society later this year. So plenty of stuff coming out. And if you're into audiobooks, almost all of it is on audio or coming out as soon as I can get, as fast as I can get it. So lots of exciting stuff.
We'll have to get George Guidell to do your audiobooks for you. That's when you know you've made it, right? I don't know if he's still doing that or not, but I love listening to anything he does. But I don't do too many audiobooks. My wife will do a lot more than I do. I like the hard copy in my hand, but they're good for trips, I guess. Any other shameless plugs you want to put out there? Website, podcast you got coming up, anything like that?
Yeah, my website is stuartjaffe.com. You can find me everywhere on the internet. I try to be about, and like I said, everything's in ebook, print, and a lot of it's an audiobook. I think that's about all at the moment.
All right. I'll make sure to put some links for everyone down there below that connect to his website so you can take a look at both him and what he has to offer. I highly encourage anyone out there to at least get their start here. Max Porter Paranormal Mysteries Volume 1. It's a great, huge book. Was there 4 stories in here, I believe it is?
It's three
stories,
novels.
that's right.
The first 3 novels.
Great introduction to the series. I actually love the artwork that comes with it too. It's beautiful, but highly recommended. I'm not just saying that because he's on the show here. Actually, I invited him on the show because I love the book so much. So yes, I definitely recommend it for any readers out there who like that sort of thing. And it covers lots of different genres, so there's something there for everybody. So I guess at this point, I will release my poor guest here from this painful interview. But if you have any other closing comments you want to make, we'll go ahead and sign off.
I just want to thank you for having me. It was not painful. It's been a joy, and hope to come back sometime in the future. We can talk again.
Beautiful. Well, once again, Stuart, I really want to thank you for taking the time to talk to us today, and hopefully we can collab a little bit in the future. So anyway, I'll let you get back to your day. Make sure to like and subscribe. I'll have some more content like this coming up shortly. Until next time, this is Genome and Stuart Jaffe. Out.